Oh yeah. Okay, frustrated again this morning. I was doing some work on the ground. I wanted to shine my lights down on top of it. I couldn't do it, right? And I didn't want the lights shining across the ground. I needed them shining down on top of what I was working on. So again, same thing, same frustration we talked about in the first video. And I got a couple ideas though. One of the ideas I'm gonna try is, so I don't have to buy extra hardware, is if there's nothing inside this piece of plastic right here, I'm going to try to shade this off from here down, like at an angle like that. I'm going to cut it. Yep, that's pretty radical, but I won't have to buy new hardware. I'm going to try it on one of them, and we'll see if that works. There may be electronics and stuff in here that I can't do that, but we'll take it apart and we'll see, okay? Chances are there's not. These are usually pretty simple. The other idea is to, of course, bend these brackets out and then bend them up. And then what that'll do is that'll drop this light down some because the bracket won't be straight up and down. It'll come out and go up like that. But then we have to get longer hardware, right? We have to find some knobs that have this M8 by 1.25 thread pitch. So this is a metric thread M8 by 1.25. And it'd be nice to have knobs. You could just use a regular bolt, but then if you want to bend it up or down, you can't really loosen them. Maybe you can tighten them just right where they'll just swivel up and down and that won't become a problem. But I think I'd rather have knobs. And then we have to get some kind of spacer because these are going to be bent out. There has to be some kind of spacer between this bracket and the light. So we'll try that with the second light. And we'll see which one of these work better. And then if you're thinking about making this mod, then you can choose. Now I love YouTube because it like makes everybody your neighbor. And so, you know, I got a lot of really good feedback in the comments about, oh, why don't we try this or bend the brackets out? And somebody else had a couple other ideas. One of the ideas was to just invert this. And I thought, that's a great idea. That'll work perfect. And so they said, just take this off. Again, 5 minutes. Of course, I'm exaggerating again. And tip this over and then put this on like this. And two problems arise. One, this is too narrow for this bracket, which you could cut this off and, you know, fix that. It might make it a little more tippy side to side, but that would fix that. The other thing is it might tip side to side like this because this flat surface sits on that flat surface. Now you're going to have this part sitting on top of that, right, like that. And then the third thing was, the other thing was this bumps into this down here. So we could bend that to the side, or, you know, it's a lot of little mods, but that might work. Then you're not going to get the full height out of the light once you do raise it up, which I probably never am going to use anyway, honestly, which would be fine for me. So I think that's a good idea, but it would take a few mods. So thank you for suggesting that. First thing, we'll just take these little handles off, these little screws for the handles off here. And then this looks like a 3mm hex. There's a little rubber washer there. Nothing there. That's just the reflector. Inside of here, looks like I want to take these out as well, just to make sure there's nothing here. Isn't that nice of them? 3 Phillips and 1 Torx. That's a T10 right there. Whatever. I have to remember where that goes. I don't see anything inside here. You know, there's that piece of metal which corresponds to that. You can see there's a hole right there, and there's the hole right there. So there's nothing inside there. I'm not going to cut that ground wire. Look at the other side over here as well. And there's nothing there. So I was wrong. I don't need to cut it at an angle. I just need to cut it right along here. Like that. Now you could cut this with a hacksaw, with a bandsaw, with a portaband, with probably one of those little multi-tools as well. But this is aluminum. This is plastic here, so now my cut wasn't super straight. It tapers out just a little bit as it goes down, so I kind of came in just a little bit too far. I thought I was going to have to cut all the way up to here, right across from the bolt, but I don't think I have to, because the way the bracket sits, if it's bolted right here and I want to tip it forward, that'll give me a lot of room to tip it forward. So I'm basically cutting to where the bandsaw is going straight down from this edge right here, this little lip. And then I'm going to cut, see that line right there? I'm going to cut right along that line. Okay, that one doesn't tilt. I like it to tilt further. Let's see what we can do. Here's the tilt angle from the side. And it's just hitting right there, so I think I'll notch that out right there. Just kind of bring this back at an angle here on both sides. Okay, so you can see where we cut this part out with the bandsaw straight across here, and then I cut this 45 up here with a multi-tool and a little metal / wood blade. And I kind of nick the front. Okay, old light, doesn't tilt forward. Modification, that's like 45 degrees or so, isn't it? Let's make sure it works still. Yep, that's good. So, you know, any kind of modification to something like this, you're taking your own risk, you know. And then grinding this out where metal falls in, this back part looks to me like it's protected from any metal shavings that might get in the electronics and cause a short, but I'm still going to take it apart and make sure those are all cleaned out. I blew it out with the compressor, and I don't think there's a communication into this electric box right here, but I'm still going to take it apart just to make sure. Okay, well, like I said, doing something like this is doing it at your own risk. Do I need to fill this in? You know, I'm not going to be, well, I always say I don't see myself working outside in the rain with this light, but who knows what's going to happen, right? I can't predict the future, and then I find myself eating my own words because I said, oh, that'll never happen. So I might try to fill this in with something. I don't know what I'm going to use. So, you know, there's nothing really there that I need to, do I need to put epoxy there or silicone or something like that? I don't know. But I do think I want to seal it up with something. And not just, you know, my typical fix, which would be Gorilla Tape or redneck duct tape. I'll think of something. Okay guys, I think I have a solution here for at least one way to do it. I've got the numbers as far as the angles to bend this and what distances, and the parts that you should be able to get pretty easily at a hardware store. Okay, so basically you can see this one's already pushed out. I already did this side. There's an angle there that bends back up to a 90, comes up here. There's a spacer there. There's a longer stud on this knob, so I'll show you how I did that. This one has not been done, so we'll do this together so you can see how this was done just real quick and decide if that's the way you want to go or not, if you ever want to do this. Now my worry was, of course, bending this bracket shortened this side from this side, so it did tilt it a little bit. Of course, we're going to get that straightened up. I was worried it would push it down so far that this would hit here, and I just have to cut that Braun thing off. It's just a piece of plastic. I don't have a problem cutting it off, but it looks like we're not going to have to. So let's take this apart real quick. I'll show you what I did. Okay, so I went to the hardware store and picked up a couple things. You know, there's a few things I went through, and I'm not going to go through all the ideas I had that didn't work out. Let me just show you what I did that worked. Okay, so this is a 40mm stud, and this is this thread pitch on this knob from the Harbor Freight light that goes on the side of the light is M8 by 1.25 thread pitch. So M8 by 1.25. I found these M8 by 1.25 studs. This is the 40mm. And just so you can see, 40mm. This is the one I ended up with. My plan was to put it into this little M8 by 1.25 coupler, thread this in, and try to make that work. And that's just way too big, okay? I decided, well, I could cut this down and use this as a spacer. I got a better idea though. This is what I ended up with. Okay, now you can buy these knobs on Amazon or on eBay or whatever, and with longer studs with M8 by 1.25. these plastic knobs. I looked for these in my hardware store, 2 different hardware stores. I couldn't find them at all. Of course, they have the SAE kind, but they don't have the metric kind. So what I found out that I could do is this stud, I thought it might be like a hex bolt inside there, but it's just a stud. So I got some vice grips, clamp down on it. And I don't care much about the stud I'm pulling out because I'm not going to reuse it. But it just unthreaded. It was pretty tight in there. And this is the 40 millimeter. Just thread that right in. Now, if this does loosen up, I'll drop some epoxy in it or some JB Weld and then thread it back up, and that should keep it from ever moving again. But in my testing I've done so far, that hasn't been a problem because you can get it pretty tight in there. Good deal. Okay, that's what it looks like. That's the other one I made. Okay, so they come out to about the same length, and then we just need a spacer that's the right length. So let's look at those specifications real quick. Okay, so I'm not going to drag you through all the math and all the calculations of calculating a right triangle, hypotenuse, and all that stuff. But, because it felt like I was back in high school again, in any event, what I did was I bent, so this side looked like this side at first. I bent this to 45 degrees, and then at what point do I want to bend it up? Because I want it to stick out 5/8 of an inch. Okay, so I want it to stick out 5/8 of an inch from the existing vertical line right here. I want it to be 5/8 out this way. So you bend it at another 45 degrees at 7/8 inch. Okay, so the first 45 degrees is right there, and then you measure 7/8, and then you bend another 45 degree for that one. Okay, and that will work with this 40 millimeter stud and a 5/8 inch spacer. Okay, so we're just going to bend this out to a 45, and it's important to bend it here and not out here so this doesn't get all wonky right here. So we're going to try to bend it right here. Okay, got a little bit further to go. And just do it a little bit at a time so you don't overdo it. It's really easy to overdo. Probably ain't gonna show up well in the camera, but that's 45 degrees right there. Now what we'll do is just measure 7/8 up from that bend. Not an inch, not 3/4, 7/8. That's where we'll put our second 45 in. Just about where that looks horizontal should get us pretty close. That'll be at 45 there, and then a 90 right there between there and there. Okay, now we've got what looks like a pretty symmetrical bracket. It's pretty close. It's not exact science, but I'm not worried about that. Now, as far as the spacer goes, you know, this is about 1/2 inch tubing. This is aluminum. I was looking for steel, but I found this, and this is a little easier to cut. But you could use steel, you could use aluminum, you could, if you find a plastic pipe this small, that would work as well. It just needs to be something kind of a smaller diameter for that stud to fit in. And this is actually, what, 3/8 on the inside, and it's a 1/2 inch on the outside. So we're just going to mark this at 5/8. Take the file and kind of clean this up a little bit here. Okay, we'll pop this bracket back on here. We'll bring the light around. Got our spacer we're going to put right there. Okay. Now we're going to slide through. Okay, we'll snug these down, make sure it holds it in place nicely. And you can tip it, but it's kind of hard. But it should tip right through now. Now it'll tip down. And this gap is bigger than I wanted it to be. These 30 millimeter studs that I bought as well, just in case the 40 millimeters were too big, these were just too short. And we couldn't get the metal, I couldn't get the metal bent out far enough with these studs so that it was straight up and down. And yeah, you can make it crooked or a little wonky and it'll be fine. I don't really care what this looks like. I just need it to shine light where I want it to shine. That's all it's got to do. It's got one job, to shine light where I want it to shine. And now it's going to do it. Let's say for a minute that you can't find these studs to replace the existing studs. Let's just measure these because you might be able to find these on Amazon or something. I didn't find them on Amazon, but I don't remember what size they came in. The stud length here looks like it's 27 millimeters. So if you could find something close to that, it might work. Now, but also keep in mind that the hole that the stud goes in the light is not very deep. So you don't have a lot of wiggle room to make this work. But if you get a longer stud, you could cut it off and then use one of those things that kind of restore the threads that you kind of screw on, like a little chamfer thing, so that it'll still thread up pretty easily. Or you can file it like old school, just like I used to do. But then, you know, you kind of screw up the threads. But you can, you know, you really only need to thread it in once. And once it's threaded in, it'll stay. You might loosen it or tighten a little bit. But okay, hope this helps you guys. I screwed up my light so you don't have to. Or you have a choice to screw. I mean, you're going to screw it up either way, right? You're going to alter it somehow to make it more usable. But that's all I'm trying to do here is make it more usable. We tried this way. We tried this way. You may or may not want to do this way. Of course, this didn't cost any money, but I still haven't figured out a way I'm going to fill that hole safely. And this works really well. I kind of wish I'd done this, but this did cost money. You know, it's going to be $350, about $325 or $350 a stud. So that's $7. And then this is going to be another $7. So that's $14 to fix a light that should have been built right to begin with. Kind of annoys me, but it is a good fix. And so far it's been a good light. I'm going to keep using it, of course. If you have to buy the knobs, you know, that's an expense as well. If you have to buy the little metal for spacers, you know, a little piece of 1/2 inch by 3/8 or whatever you want to put that stud will fit down, that'll cost a little bit too. So just keep that in mind. This was a free fix. It would just cost a little bit of time, unless I have to put something in here to seal this up that's going to cost me money. Okay, thanks for watching.